Good morning, everyone, and welcome to lesson 3. Today, we're going to be still talking about fractions, but looking at equivalent fractions, fractions that are equal to each other. So let's just go to full screen. Brilliant. Okay, so our character today has a cake, and they want to cut this cake into smaller pieces. I've highlighted a little bit here because it's easy to get yourself confused with this. They're cutting half of the cake. So here was my cake. My cake is pink and let's just call it bluey green because it's blue here and green there. Pink and bluey green. I've cut it in half. There's my pink, there's my half. And now I want to cut my cake into 4 equal pieces. Well, I'm cutting half of the cake into 4 equal pieces. So 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece, 4 piece. There's my half of the cake. And over here, our character says each piece is an eighth. Is that right? Well, it is. Each piece of the whole cake is now an eighth because I've taken half of it into 1, 2, 3, 4, but the other half is also in 4. So that cake is split into 8 equal pieces. But 1/2, the half that Mr. Turnham is going to eat, is the same as 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, is it fourths or is it eighths? Well, it's going to be eighths because I'm talking about eating 4/8 of the cake. If it was 4/4, that would be the whole thing. I'm not that greedy. I'm just going to eat 4/8 of this cake, half of it. I could cut this half into 5 equal pieces. So my half, the pink half, is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means the whole cake is how many pieces? 10. So half of the cake, the half that I'm going to eat, is now worth 5/10. Exactly the same size, but I could call that 4/8. I could call it 5/10. Lastly, I'm going to cut this cake into hundredths. I'm cutting the whole cake into hundredths. So half of it is going to be 50 hundredths. This question's worded a bit confusingly because unlike the first two, we're not cutting half of the cake anymore. We're cutting the whole thing into hundredths. Right. So my question, which of these numbers are easily written as tenths or hundredths? In other words, which of these could I find equivalents where the denominator would be 10 or the denominator would be 100? You might want to pause this video and have a think. Four-fifths could easily be turned into 8/10 by doubling 4 and doubling 5. So my 4/5, there's 1/5 there, those 2 pieces, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5. Well, if I split each of those fifths, I get tenths. I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tenths. So that 4/5 could easily be turned into a tenth. It can equally be turned into 80 hundredths because I'm going to take each of these tenths and split them into 100. And that would now give me 10 hundredths, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hundredths. Those are equivalent to 4/5. Over here, young lady with the yellow scrunchie says that 7/12 is equal to something over 10 or something over 100. Well, if I've got a cake cut into 20ths and I want to split it into a cake cut into tenths, each of those, every 2 pieces are going to combine to make 1. So that means I've got to halve 20 to get to 10. I've got to halve 17. But what happens when I halve 17? It's an odd number, which means I'm going to get a decimal. I can't have a decimal, so that's not going to be a correct fraction. What about if I take it to hundredths, though? Well, 20 times 5 is 100, and I can times 17 by 5 to make a whole number, so that would work. Let's look at our pink dress young lady. She's got 21 25ths. Can we make that into something over 10? Well, the only way we can divide 25 is by using a decimal. So that's not really going to work very easily. 25 to get to 10 isn't going to work. What about 25 to get to 100? Well, that might work because we know that 25 times 4 is 100. So then I just have to times 21 by 4. And here we go. So 8.5 over 10 does not work, but 85 over 100 does. 88.4 over 10 does not work, but 84 over 100 does work. Sometimes getting our fraction to 100 allows us to find an easier way of simplifying it. Okay. We've got 3/5. Here's the 3/5 here. Is the same as how many tenths? Well, what I've got to do here is split each of these fifths into 2 pieces. It's been done over here. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5. Split into 2 means I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 tenths. So I can see 5 times 2, 3 times 2. Over here, I've got 3/5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to get my denominator to be 15. Well, I know that the only way I can get 5 to turn into 15 is by timesing it by 3. So each of these parts is going to be split into 3 parts. I know I had 3 of those. I'm now doing 3 lots of 3. 3, 6, 9. 5 times 3 was 15. 3 times 3 is 9. Over here, we've got 5 tenths. Here's my fifth, sorry, 3/5. Here's my 3/5, and we're turning it into tenths. So I'm going to have to turn each of these fifths into 2 parts. I'm timesing 5 by 2, which means I'm going to have 3 lots of 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And then lastly, I've got 3/5, and I want to turn it into hundredths. 5 times 20 is 100, which means each of these fifths would need to be split into 20 parts. So each of them, it's 5 times 20 gets me to 100. Well, I've got 3 of these parts, so 3 times 20 will get me to 60. And as if by magic, there are our answers. Okay. 3/4 equals how many 12ths? Well, I know that to get from quarters to 12ths, I've got to multiply by 3. I've got to split my square into 3. If I'm multiplying 4 by 3 to get 12, I've then got to multiply 3 by 3 to get 9. The next one is 3/4 equals 12 what? It's exactly the same principle here. What am I timesing 3 by to get to 12? 3 times 4 is 12. which means I'm going to do 4 times 4 to get to 16. Same thing down here. 4 times what is 100? 4 times 25 is 100, which means I'm going to do 3 times 25 to get my answer here. Going to ask you to go to your worksheet. It's page 129, 130. The link is on the PDF in the class story. Once you've had a go at your worksheet, can you come back to this video to check your answers? Brilliant. First part of the worksheet was asking you to shade in. Here are the answers. Then it asked you to do some equivalents. Once you've done this worksheet, there's a very short online quiz. Can you please do that quiz today so that I can see if there are any gaps? If there are gaps, I'll post another video tomorrow morning in the comments section on Thursday's class story with a bit of a recap of any areas that people are still struggling with. Have a lovely, no, don't have a lovely long weekend yet. You've got one more day of school still. Tomorrow's task is a calculation test. You can find it on tomorrow's class story. There'll be no video for tomorrow. So the next time I will see you through this screen will be Monday. See you later.